Hey everyone, I wanted to make this video to talk about a really amazing quote from the great Gene Krupa. And this was something that I read years ago online. It was a post from a drummer who, as a teenager, had attended a Gene Krupa drum clinic. And when the clinic was over, all the drummers lined up to get Gene Krupa's autograph. And when this drummer was waiting in line, he realized he was only going to have a few seconds to talk to Gene Krupa, and he wanted to make it count. So when he finally got to the front of the line and got his chance, he asked Gene Krupa, if you could just pick one thing, one single thing, what would you say is the single most important skill for a drummer to have? And he wrote that Gene Krupa replied, without hesitation, you have to believe you have a good beat. And I think that's an incredibly deep thing to say. So I wanted to just draw everyone's attention to that and then talk about it a little bit, because sometimes we neglect the mental aspects of drumming. We can practice all these technical things, even work on our time, but the mental aspects of drumming are at least equally important. That's why I think Gene Krupa said what he said. Notice that he didn't even say the most important thing is to have a good beat. He said the most important thing is to believe you have a good beat. Because in order to play the drums well, you need confidence, you need to have faith in yourself, you need to be relaxed, you don't want to be wishy-washy or insecure. You're really in charge of the band, they're depending on you. So if you're not confident in your beat, no one else is going to be either. And I know for myself, I've worked on and continue to work on the mental aspects of drumming the same way I've practiced paradiddles and single stroke rolls and independence and all the other things that we work on as drummers. And I think a mistake that I made when I was younger was that I used to think, well, one day when I'm happy with my playing, then I'll be confident. But it doesn't really work that way, because if I waited until I was happy with my playing to be confident, I would never be confident. Sometimes you have to figure out a way to make the confidence happen first. Believing you have a good beat is part of having a good beat. Now, that doesn't mean that you just go around thinking, oh, I'm the greatest drummer ever, I'm perfect, I have no flaws, because then you won't improve. You have to be honest about your flaws, you have to be objective and analytical in order to improve. But that kind of analytical mindset, that's more for when you're practicing. When you're actually on a gig playing with people, you can't really afford to think that way. And if you're playing and you have that inner voice in your head that's saying, oh, am I rushing? Am I dragging? Am I swinging? I don't think this is good. It's not going to help you. So that critical voice can help you improve when you're not on the gig. But on the gig, you have to silence that voice. When you're there on the gig playing, you have to be able to be relaxed and confident in your beat. And Gene Krupa understood this. He was very interested in the mental aspects of drumming, and it's every bit as important, like I said, at least as important as all the other things that we work on. You have to believe you have a good beat. And then you practice when you're not at a gig, and you try to improve, and you try to keep getting better and better. But on the gig, you have to feel secure in what you're doing. If you're not comfortable with your beat, no one else is going to be. So when I read this years ago, it had a huge impact on me. So I think this is something really that we can all pay attention to and work on. And I have to be honest, I read this online maybe 20 years ago. And before I did this video, I searched extensively online to try to find this post again, and I could not find it. I asked Brooks Tegler, who I would say is the world's foremost authority on Gene Krupa, and he wrote a fantastic book detailing all of Gene Krupa's equipment over the years, incredibly researched. I highly recommend it. I asked Brooks if he had heard this story, and he hadn't, but he said that from what he knew about Gene, it sounded like the kind of thing that Gene would say. And there's a new biography out on Gene Krupa by Elizabeth Rosenthal, and that book has some writings of Gene about the mental aspects of drumming, talking about being confident and getting rid of your inhibitions, stuff that's not too dissimilar. So I do really believe that Gene Krupa said this, but the beautiful thing about this quote is even if this story was completely made up and Gene Krupa never said it, it really doesn't matter because it's still great advice. Some things are true regardless of who says it. So I think that Gene Krupa did say it. It makes sense with what I know about him, but regardless, working on the mental aspects of drumming and being confident and relaxed when you play is key. It's not an optional part of being a good drummer. You really need to find a way to have that the way you would try to get any other aspect of playing the drums. So I thought this was so important. It's something that I don't hear people talk about a lot, so I just wanted to make this video. And again, this is just one of the many great lessons we can learn from Gene Krupa. So I would encourage everyone to work on the mental aspects of drumming. Don't make the same mistakes that I did. And of course, I would also encourage everyone to listen to Gene Krupa. You can't go wrong. I've always learned something new, no matter how many times I listen to the same recordings of his. So anyway, that's it. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. I will be back soon.